Boxing's 5 oldest world champions includes Manny Pacquiao and 49-year-old title holder. The adage boxing is a young man's sport doesn't always apply. Over the years, there have been several fighters who have defied the odds to win world titles deep into their 40s, often against opponents almost half their age. One of Britain's greatest ever pugilists, Bob Fitzsimmons, famously became the sport's first three-weight world champion at 40 years old when he outpointed 26-year-old George Gardner in 1903. However, there are 5 world champions who are even longer in the tooth than him. To be clear, this list is based on the age at which each boxer won their last world titles. Therefore, the old mongoose Archie Moore, who was light heavyweight champion until 48, doesn't feature as he first received the recognition when he was 36. But it's also important to note that only recognized world titles count. So, Antonio Tarver winning the IBO cruiserweight belt at 42 won't be factored into this article. This list is also entirely made up of male champions. A separate list for the ladies will come later. 1. Bernard Hopkins, light heavyweight, 49 years, 94 days. The ageless wonder Bernard Hopkins became a light heavyweight world champion 3 times in his 40s. At 46 years old, he snatched the WBC and lineal titles from Jean Pascal before dropping them to Chad Dawson. He then rebounded to beat Tavares Cloud for the IBF strap at 48 years old before extending his own record by unifying the WBA title with a points win over Babut Shumenov in April 2014. 3 months after his 49th birthday, his reign eventually came to an end in November 2014 when he dared to be great by taking on a prime Sergei Crusher Kovalev. Hopkins was 68 days away from turning 50, while Kovalev was 31, and yet the hard-hitting Russian still couldn't dispatch him inside the distance. 2. George Foreman, heavyweight, 45 years, 299 days. In 1987, following a 10-year hiatus and 13 years removed from his crushing defeat in Zaire to Muhammad Ali, Foreman launched an unlikely comeback at 38. His primary motivation was to raise money to fund a youth center he had built in Houston, Texas. However, in the process, he became the oldest heavyweight world champion of all time. After coming up short against Holyfield for the undisputed crown in April 1991 and Tommy Morrison for the WBO belt in June 1993, it was third-time lucky for Big George when he met Michael Mora in November 1994 for the WBA and IBF straps, trailing on the scorecards heading into the 10th round. Foreman plucked out a right hand from the guards that left his significantly younger foe flat on his back. Foreman went on to defend the IBF belt against Axel Schultz in a nip-and-tuck affair 6 months later, but refused an immediate rematch, resulting in him being stripped of the red and gold strap. 3. Thulani Malinaw, super middleweight, 42 years, 8 days. Thulani Malinaw, better known as Sugar Boy Malinaw, is the oldest boxer to win a world title for the first time. After 3 failed attempts against Graciano Rukajani, IBF, Lindell Holmes, IBF, and Chris Eubank, WBO, Malinaw exacted his revenge over Nigel Benn for the WBC super middleweight belt at 40 years old in his 50th professional outing. Vincenzo Nardiello then took the belt from him before Malinaw regained it by upsetting Robin Reed in December 1997, when the South African was 42 years old. A defeat to Britain's Richie Woodhall in his first defense marked the end of his second short reign, but his legacy lives on. 4. Cornelius Bundridge, super welterweight, 41 years, 169 days. Bundridge became the oldest super welterweight champion of all time in October 2014 when he outclassed Carlos Molina to regain his IBF belt at 41 years old. He dropped the title 1 year later when he was blown away in 3 rounds by Jermall Charlo, but continued to compete until 47, ending his career with 3 straight wins. 5. Manny Pacquiao, welterweight, 40 years, 215 days. Manny Pacquiao rolled back the years in July 2019 to put on a vintage display against Keith Thurman for the WBA welterweight title. Boxing's lone 8-weight world champion would drop his belt to Yordanis Ugas 2 years later. However, he would come desperately close to moving further up the list in July, when, after 4 years out of action, Pacman held WBC welterweight champion Mario Barrios to a draw at 46 years old.